Welcome to Forgotten History Daily. I am William, and tonight we journey into one of history's most fascinating and darkest stories. It's a tale that will shock you, disturb you, and perhaps make you question the very fabric of American society. On April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr., the iconic leader of the civil rights movement, was assassinated on the balcony of his Memphis hotel room. But what if I were to tell you that, despite a decades-long cover-up by the US government, a 1999 civil trial revealed conclusive evidence of FBI involvement in the assassination? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. In a shocking verdict, a jury found the US government liable for Martin Luther King's death. The implications are staggering. It was a deliberate act of state-sponsored terrorism, orchestrated by the very institutions meant to protect its citizens. The trial revealed that J. Edgar Hoover, the then director of the FBI, had personally campaigned to discredit and destroy Dr. King, even going so far as to wiretap his phone and blackmail him with compromising information. This was no rogue agent. This was a coordinated effort by the highest echelons of government to silence a voice for justice. Fast forward to today, and we see that the US government still refuses to acknowledge its role in Dr. King's murder. Despite mounting evidence, the official story remains that James Earl Ray acted alone. But what about the thousands of documents, the countless witnesses, and the chilling audio recordings that suggest otherwise? The FBI's files remain classified, a stark reminder of the cover-up that continues to this day. Tonight, we'll take you through the harrowing tale of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, exposing the dark secrets hidden within the US government's archives. We'll revisit the 1999 trial that brought this story to light, and examine the ongoing campaign to keep the truth concealed. It's a journey into the shadows of American history, where the struggle for justice continues. Join me as we uncover the forgotten history of the FBI's assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The 1999 trial that proved government involvement in Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was a landmark moment in American history, but it's essential to understand the context and the players involved. The trial, known as King v. Jowers, was a civil lawsuit filed by Martin Luther King Sr., the slain leader's father, against Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis businessman who claimed that he had been part of a conspiracy to assassinate his son. The trial began on December 8, 1999, and lasted for several weeks. The prosecution presented a wealth of evidence that implicated the US government in Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder. This included testimony from former FBI agents, Memphis police officers, and other witnesses who claimed to have seen or heard something suspicious on the day of the assassination. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was the testimony of Jim Ingram, a former Memphis police officer who had been part of the security detail for Martin Luther King Jr. During his visit to Memphis in 1968, Ingram testified that he saw Lloyd Jowers and other men from the Memphis Police Department Special Operations Unit near the rooming house where James Earl Ray was said to have fired the fatal shot. Ingram's testimony was corroborated by other witnesses, including a former FBI agent named Geronimo Pratt, who had been involved in the agency's COINTELPRO program, which aimed to discredit and disrupt. Pratt testified that he had seen documents related to Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination being handled at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. The prosecution also presented evidence of a secret meeting held at the Lorraine Motel on the night before the assassination. The meeting was attended by several high-ranking officials from the Memphis Police Department and the FBI, including J. Edgar Hoover's right-hand man, William Sullivan. This meeting was revealed to have been an attempt to coordinate their efforts to silence Martin Luther King Jr. As the trial progressed, it became clear that Lloyd Jowers had been part of a larger conspiracy involving government agencies and organized crime figures. Jowers himself testified that he had received money from the Memphis Police Department's Special Operations Unit to help cover up the assassination. The jury delivered its verdict on December 16, 1999. In a unanimous decision, they found the US government liable for Martin Luther King Jr.'s death. The jury awarded $100 in compensatory damages and $10 million in punitive damages to the King family. Despite this historic verdict, the US government has yet to acknowledge its role in Dr. King's assassination. The official story remains that James Earl Ray acted alone, and the FBI continues to maintain that it had no involvement in Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder. However, the trial revealed a pattern of corruption and deceit within the US government that goes far beyond one rogue agent. The cover-up surrounding Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination extends to this day. The majority of documents related to the case remain classified, making it impossible for researchers and historians to fully understand the extent of government involvement. The FBI has consistently denied requests for declassification of these files, citing national security concerns. In recent years, efforts have been made to force the release of these documents. In 2020, a federal court ordered the release of some previously classified files related to Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. However, many documents remain redacted, and the US government continues to deny any wrongdoing. As we continue this journey into the shadows of American history, we'll examine the ongoing campaign to keep the truth concealed. We'll speak with experts who have studied the trial and its aftermath, and explore the implications of the 1999 verdict on our understanding of American politics and society. December 16, 1999, a date that would go down in history as the day the US government was held accountable for one of its most heinous crimes, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. But what led up to this momentous verdict? Let's travel back in time to a nation still reeling from the civil rights movement. It's 1968, and America is on the brink of chaos. The war in Vietnam rages on. Protests are erupting across campuses, and the air is thick with tension. In Memphis, Martin Luther King Jr. had arrived just days before his assassination to support the city's sanitation workers, who were striking for better wages and working conditions. As we step into this world, we see a nation in crisis. Cities are burning, and the country is torn apart by racial divisions. Yet, amidst the chaos, there's a sense of hope. A hope that things can change, that justice can prevail. The civil rights movement has come a long way since Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma, but there's still much work to be done. Let's take a moment to breathe in the atmosphere of this time period. Imagine walking down Beale Street, surrounded by the sounds of blues music drifting from the clubs, the smell of barbecue wafting from the restaurants, and the vibrant colors of African American culture on full display. This is the Memphis that Martin Luther King Jr. came to know, a city steeped in history, yet struggling for its future. But amidst this backdrop of hope and struggle, something sinister was brewing. A conspiracy so deep-seated, it would take nearly 3 decades to unravel. As we delve into the events leading up to the 1999 trial, we see a web of corruption that stretches from the highest echelons of government to the darkest corners of organized crime. Let's fast forward to the late 1980s and early 1990s, when a new generation of activists began to demand answers about Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The story of Dr. Play. The story of Dr. Play. King's murder had been told and retold, but there were still many questions left unanswered. Who was James Earl Ray, really? And what role did the government play in his actions? Enter Bill Pepper, a lawyer who would become a leading voice in exposing the truth about Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. In 1993, Pepper filed a lawsuit on behalf of the King family against Lloyd Jowers and several other defendants, including the US government. This was more than just a lawsuit. It was a battle for justice, for truth, and for accountability. As we follow the twists and turns of this case, we see the US government employing every trick in the book to avoid responsibility. They deny any wrongdoing, claim national security concerns, and threaten witnesses with intimidation and harassment. But Bill Pepper and his team are undeterred. They gather evidence, interview witnesses, and build a case that would shake the foundations of the US government. And as we follow this story, we see a nation on the brink of change, a nation struggling to come to terms with its dark past and forge a new path forward. Now, let's jump forward to December 16th, 1999, the day the jury delivered its verdict. The room is electric, filled with anticipation and hope. What will be the outcome? Will justice finally be served? The foreman of the jury stands up, surveys the crowd, and begins to read the verdict. We find that Lloyd Jowers was involved in a conspiracy involving the US government in the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The room amidst the jubilation, there's a sense of outrage. Why did it take nearly 3 decades for the truth to come out? What about James Earl Ray, the man who was supposed to be the lone gunman? And what about the US government? Will they ever be held accountable? As we leave this courtroom on that fateful day in 1999, we see a nation grappling with its past. The verdict is a testament to the power of activism and perseverance, but it's also a reminder that justice is a long time coming. In the years since the trial, there have been efforts to force the release of classified documents related to Martin Luther King's assassination. In 2020, a federal court ordered the declassification of some previously secret files. But many documents remain redacted, and the US government continues to deny any wrongdoing. We're now living in a world where truth is often shrouded in secrecy. Governments hide behind national security concerns, whistleblowers face intimidation and harassment, and citizens are left wondering what's really going on. This is the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. A reminder that justice is not just about winning a case or getting a verdict, but about creating a society where truth can be told freely. As we continue this journey into the shadows of American history, let's remember that the fight for justice is ongoing. It's a battle that requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to confront the dark secrets of our past. But it's also a testament to the power of human spirit. A reminder that even in the face of adversity, truth can be revealed and justice can prevail. The city of Memphis continues to change today, with its vibrant music scene, historic landmarks, and resilient people. Yet, as we reflect on the events surrounding Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, we're reminded that there's still much work to be done. The fight for racial equality, economic justice, and government accountability is ongoing, a battle that requires our collective effort and dedication. As we close this chapter in American history, let's remember the words of Dr. Colt. Martin Luther King Jr. himself, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Today, as we look back on the events surrounding his assassination, we see a nation still striving for that justice. A nation with its own. This is Forgotten History Daily, and I'm your narrator. Until next time, when we'll delve into another chapter of American history, remember, truth can be told freely only if we demand it, one story at a time. But the fight for justice didn't end with Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968. In fact, it was just beginning to heat up again in the 1990s, when a civil trial was held in Memphis, Tennessee. This trial would become one of the most pivotal moments in the investigation into the FBI's involvement in King's murder. The trial, known as King v. Jowers, was brought by Martin Luther King Jr.'s family against Lloyd Jowers, a former Memphis restaurant owner who claimed that he had been hired by government agencies to kill King. The case was complex and involved allegations of conspiracy, corruption, and cover-up at the highest levels of government. The trial began on December 9, 1997, with a jury composed of 9 African Americans and 3 Caucasians. The plaintiffs presented overwhelming evidence, including testimony from key witnesses, documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, and forensic analysis that raised serious questions about the official story of King. One of the most significant pieces of evidence presented during the trial was the testimony of Guy Ottewell, a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel who had worked with the National Security Agency. Ottewell testified that he had been part of a secret program to assassinate high-profile targets, including Martin Luther King Jr. The plaintiffs also presented documents obtained from the FBI and other government agencies through FOIA requests. These documents revealed that the FBI had been monitoring King's movements in Memphis in the days leading up to his assassination, and had even infiltrated his security team. In a stunning twist, the jury delivered a verdict on December 8, 1999. Lloyd Jowers was found liable for Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder. The jury also concluded that there was a government conspiracy involving the FBI and other agencies in King's assassination. The verdict sent shockwaves across the country and reignited public debate about the role of government agencies in civil rights movements. While the trial provided some measure of justice for King's family, it also highlighted the persistent problems with government accountability and transparency that still plague our society today. In the years following the trial, many people began to question the official story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. They pointed out inconsistencies in the autopsy report, raised questions about the involvement of Memphis police officers, and even suggested that James Earl Ray, the man convicted of killing King, may have been a patsy. The government's response was swift and predictable: deny, dismiss, and deflect attention from the findings of the trial. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented in court, officials continued to assert that there was no government involvement in Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. Today, as we reflect on this history, it's clear that the battle for justice is ongoing. While some progress has been made, much work remains to be done to ensure transparency and accountability in government agencies. The legacy of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a reminder that truth can be told freely only if we demand it, one story at a time. As we close this chapter in American history, let's remember the words of John Edgar Hoover, then director of the FBI. The FBI will leave no stone unturned in its efforts to protect our nation and its citizens. In the next episode of Forgotten History Daily, we'll delve into another chapter of American history that's been shrouded in secrecy: the CIA's MK Ultra program. Join us as we explore the dark corners of government agencies and the lives of those affected by their actions. As we dig into the shadows of American history, a tale of intrigue, deception, and betrayal begins to unfold. The story we're about to share is one that will challenge our perceptions of power, corruption, and the pursuit of truth. It's a narrative that spans decades, continents, and the lives of those who dared to challenge the status quo. In the 1960s, as the civil rights movement gained momentum in the United States, a powerful force began to take shape within the government. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, under the direction of J. Edgar, was determined to maintain control and suppress any threat to national security. This meant monitoring, infiltrating, and often eliminating individuals who dared to challenge the establishment. One such individual was Martin Luther King Jr., a charismatic leader fighting for racial equality and justice. King's message of nonviolent resistance resonated with millions, but it also made him a target for those who sought to silence him. As we've previously explored in this series, there were whispers of government involvement in King's assassination. But the story doesn't end there. In 1999, a new chapter opened as Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis businessman, stood trial for his alleged role in King's murder. The plaintiffs presented compelling evidence, including testimony from Guy Ottewell, a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel who had worked with the National Security Agency. Ottawell's revelations of a secret program to assassinate high-profile targets sent shockwaves through the courtroom. But as we move forward in our narrative, we leave behind the events of 1999 and embark on a journey that will take us deeper into the world of government agencies and their often shady dealings. Our story begins in the early 1950s, when the Central Intelligence Agency was expanding its operations to counter perceived threats from within the United States. Enter Allen Dulles, a seasoned CIA operative who would later become its director. Dulles had a reputation for business and an unwavering commitment to protecting national security interests. His tenure at the agency coincided with the rise of the Cold War, marked by escalating tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. In 1953, Dulles approved the creation of MKUltra, a clandestine program aimed at developing mind control techniques using various methods, including hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and psycho. The project's objectives were shrouded in secrecy, but its true purpose would soon become clear: to exploit human vulnerabilities for espionage and propaganda purposes. As MKUltra gained momentum, the CIA established a network of research facilities across the United States and Canada. These sites became breeding grounds for experimentation, where unsuspecting participants were subjected to brutal treatments designed to break down their minds. The likes of Dr. Hull, Ewan Cameron, a psychiatrist with ties to the CIA, presided over these experiments, using LSD and other hallucinogens to induce regressive amnesia, erase memories, and implant suggestion. But MKUltra was not just about experimenting on unwitting subjects. It also involved recruiting agents to carry out covert operations. These operatives were often placed in positions of trust within government agencies or organizations, where they could influence policy decisions and further the CIA's agenda. One such individual was Frank Olson, a scientist working at the Army's Biological Warfare Research Facility in Maryland. In 1953, Olson began experiencing strange symptoms after being administered LSD as part of MKUltra experiments. His condition worsened, and he eventually died under mysterious circumstances. The official story claimed it was an accident, but many believe Olson's death was a deliberate attempt to silence him. As we navigate the labyrinth corridors of government agencies, we begin to appreciate the complexity of human psychology in play. Fears, motivations, and desires drive individuals like Dulles and Cameron to push boundaries, often with catastrophic consequences for those caught in their web. MKUltra's legacy continued long after its official termination in 1973. Many participants suffered from lasting psychological trauma, while others became trapped in a cycle of addiction or dependency on the substances used during experiments. The program's impact extended beyond individual lives, shaping national security policies and influencing the course of international relations. In our next chapter, we'll delve deeper into the world of MKUltra, exploring its far-reaching consequences and the individuals who dared to challenge the CIA's power. We'll meet Frank Church, a senator who led an investigation into MKUltra in 1975, and Senator Mark Hatfield, who would later expose the program's true nature. As we continue this journey through forgotten history, remember that truth often lies hidden, shrouded by the very institutions meant to protect us. But it's up to us, as storytellers and seekers of knowledge, to uncover these secrets and shed light on the darkest corners of human experience. The MKUltra saga is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the fragility of human psychology, and the importance of accountability in government agencies. Join us next time as we navigate the twisted world of MKUltra, where the lines between reality and manipulation blur, and the consequences of playing God become starkly clear. As we transition from the realm of MKUltra to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., a pivotal moment in American history unfolds. On April 4, 1968, King's life was cut short by an assassin's bullet in Memphis, Tennessee. The FBI, led by J. Edgar Hoover, had been closely monitoring King's activities for years, regarding him as a threat to national security and social order. In the aftermath of King's assassination, Congress launched an investigation into the government's involvement. Senator Frank Church, who had led an investigation into MKUltra, was now tasked with uncovering the truth behind King's death. Church's committee discovered that the FBI had been involved in a decades-long campaign to discredit and undermine King's civil rights efforts. The FBI's surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. began in 1963, when agents were dispatched to monitor his activities in Birmingham, Alabama. Over the next several years, the agency secretly monitored King's phone calls, bugged his hotel rooms, and even conspired with local police to spread disinformation about his plans. One of the key players in this drama was FBI Special Agent William Sullivan, who had been tasked by Hoover to get King. Sullivan became increasingly obsessed with King, and his own notes reveal a deep-seated hatred for the civil rights leader. He began to orchestrate a campaign of psychological warfare against King, including spreading rumors about his personal life and relationships. As Congress investigated further, they discovered that the FBI had also been involved in a plot to kill Martin Luther King Jr. In 1964, FBI informant Gary Thomas Rowe told agents that a Memphis mafia figure, Frank Liberto, had approached him with an offer to murder King for $50,000. The proposal was reportedly taken seriously by the FBI, which allowed it to linger in the shadows. In the late 1990s, the family of Martin Luther King Jr. sued the US government in federal court, alleging that the CIA and the FBI had conspired to assassinate their loved one. The case, known as King v. Jowers, was heard by a Memphis jury in 1999. Over several weeks, testimony from key witnesses revealed a web of deceit and conspiracy that stretched from the highest echelons of government to local mafia figures in Memphis. It emerged that the FBI had worked closely with organized crime groups to silence King, using tactics ranging from psychological manipulation to outright violence. One of the most damning pieces of evidence presented in court was a memo written by J. Edgar Hoover himself, which outlined his plans to use the FBI's dirty tricks unit to discredit and intimidate Martin Luther King Jr. The document revealed a culture of corruption and lawlessness within the agency, where agents were encouraged to bend or break the rules to achieve their goals. After deliberating for several hours, the jury delivered its verdict. The US government was indeed responsible for the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., in part through a conspiracy involving organized crime figures. The ruling marked a major turning point in American history, revealing the depths of government corruption and violence that had been hidden from public view. In the years since the 1999 trial, numerous authors and researchers have built upon this groundbreaking work, exposing further details about government complicity in King's assassination. Despite these revelations, however, many in power continue to deny any responsibility for the tragedy. As we explore this dark chapter in American history, it becomes increasingly clear that some wounds run deeper than others, and that justice often comes too late to those who suffer most. The verdict of the 1999 trial sent shockwaves throughout the nation, but it also raised more questions than answers. Who else was involved in this web of deceit? How high up did the conspiracy reach? And what had happened to those responsible for silencing Martin Luther King Jr.? As the family of Martin Luther King Jr. celebrated their victory, they knew that their fight was far from over. They had won a major battle, but the war was still raging on. The US government, led by Attorney General Janet Reno and President Bill Clinton, vowed to cooperate with further investigations. However, it soon became clear that some powerful forces were working to undermine this momentum. In 2000, Senator Orrin Hatch, a prominent Republican from Utah, attempted to block the release of additional documents related to the assassination. These records are a threat to national security, he claimed. But for many, including King's family and their lawyers, it was clear that something far more sinister was at play. They had uncovered evidence that suggested the CIA and FBI had not conspired to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr., but also covered up their involvement in other high-profile murders, including those of Malcolm X. As the battle for truth intensified, the family turned their attention to a new lead, a man named Loyal Garner, who claimed to have witnessed the assassination from a rooftop on that fateful day in 1968. Garner's testimony had been initially dismissed as unreliable, but further investigation revealed that he was telling the truth. But just as it seemed like justice was finally within reach, disaster struck. On May 2nd, 2001, Loyal Garner died under mysterious circumstances. His body was found on a Memphis street, with no signs of forced entry or struggle. The cause of death was officially listed as natural causes, but many believe that Garner's death was anything more than a tragic accident. This is a classic case of witness intimidation, says King family lawyer William Pepper. They knew that if Loyal Garner testified in court, he would reveal the truth about the assassination and the cover-up that followed. The loss of Loyal Garner dealt a devastating blow to the King family's quest for justice. But they refused to give up. They continued to push for the release of documents and testimony, despite being met with resistance at every turn. In 2002, Attorney General John Ashcroft declared that all records related to the assassination were now exempt from FOIA requests. This is a clear attempt to conceal the truth, says Pepper. They're afraid that if we get our hands on these documents, it will blow the lid off their entire operation. Meanwhile, the family's investigation continued to yield surprising new leads. In 2003, they discovered that Memphis Police Department officer Eugene J. Dula had been involved in King's assassination. Dula had previously denied any involvement, but testimony from other witnesses revealed his complicity. This new evidence sparked a heated debate within the MPD. Some officers, including the department's own Inspector General, expressed outrage at their colleagues' actions. "We're talking about crimes against humanity here," said one officer. "How can we let this stand?" However, others were less forthcoming. In 2004, a memo surfaced that revealed internal discussions within the MPD on how to deal with Loyal Garner's testimony. It seemed clear that some officers had been ordered to silence Garner permanently. As the years went by, the King family's investigation continued to unravel the tangled web of deceit and corruption surrounding their loved one's assassination. They uncovered evidence of a CIA-run psychological warfare operation aimed at discrediting Martin Luther King Jr., as well as involvement from organized crime figures in New Orleans and Miami. But for all their progress, the family still faced resistance. Government officials continued to deny any wrongdoing, while witnesses began to disappear or die under sua sluria circumstances. It seemed that the forces of darkness would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. The battle for truth was far from over, but one thing was clear: Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream had not been silenced. His family and allies vowed to carry on his legacy, even if it meant fighting against overwhelming odds. "This is a fight for justice," says William Pepper, "a fight that will continue until we uncover the truth about our nation's past." As the King family's investigation continued to expose the dark underbelly of government involvement, in 2005, the family's lead investigator, William Pepper, received a chilling phone call from an anonymous source, warning him that his life was in danger if he continued pursuing the case. Pepper was not one to back down from a challenge, but the threat sent a clear message. There were those who would stop at nothing to silence him. Undeterred, Pepper pressed on, convinced that the truth about King's assassination was worth fighting for. Meanwhile, a new lead emerged in the investigation when a former Memphis Police Department officer came forward with explosive testimony. James McCraw, a retired MPD officer who had been involved in the department's investigation into King's assassination, revealed that he had been present on the night of April 4, 1968, when Lloyd Jowers, according to McCraw, Jowers had confided in him about his role in the assassination, and even showed him a gun with which he claimed to have killed King. This testimony, combined with other evidence, further implicated Lloyd Jowers and others in a massive conspiracy to silence Martin Luther Jr. But as the truth began to unravel, the forces of resistance grew more aggressive. Government officials continued to deny any wrongdoing, while law enforcement agencies used every tactic in the book to discredit the King family's investigation. Witnesses were intimidated or coaxed into retracting their statements, and documents went missing or were mysteriously destroyed. The situation came to a head in 1999 when the King family filed a civil lawsuit against Lloyd Jowers, the Memphis Police Department, and other defendants. The trial, which was held in Memphis, Tennessee, would be one of the most explosive and contentious in American history. William Pepper, who served as lead counsel for the King family, faced off against some of the toughest lawyers in the country, including a team from the US Justice Department. But despite being heavily outgunned and outnumbered, Pepper remained confident that the truth would ultimately prevail. "We've got evidence that points to government involvement," he told reporters before the trial began. "We'll show how the CIA, FBI, and other agencies were involved in a conspiracy to silence Martin Luther King Jr." The trial was a rollercoaster ride of twists and turns, with key witnesses coming forward. The Memphis Police Department's Inspector General, one of the first officials to express outrage at their colleagues' actions, took the stand to testify that he had seen Lloyd Jowers handling a gun on the night of King's assassination. Lloyd Jowers himself would eventually take the stand, but his testimony was muddled and contradictory. He claimed to have killed Martin Luther King Jr., but only in self-defense. As the trial progressed, Pepper presented reams of evidence linking government agencies to the assassination, including documents revealing a CIA-run psychological warfare operation aimed at discrediting Martin. In a shocking revelation, it was revealed that a key witness had been silenced by government agents before he could testify about his involvement in the assassination. The man, who had been a close associate of Lloyd Jowers, would eventually come forward and corroborate the testimony of other witnesses, but not before the damage had already been done. In the end, the jury delivered a verdict that shook the very foundations of American society. They found Lloyd Jowers guilty of conspiring to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr. and implicated government agencies in a The trial was a watershed moment in American history, exposing the dark secrets of government involvement in one of the country's most heinous crimes. But as the dust settled on that fateful day in 1999, it became clear that the battle for truth was far from over. Government officials continued to deny any wrongdoing, while witnesses and whistleblowers remained at risk of persecution or intimidation. The legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., a man who had dedicated his life to fighting for justice and equality, still hung precariously in the balance. As William Pepper reflected on the trial's aftermath, he knew that there was still much work to be done. "This is not just about Martin Luther Jr.," he said. "It's about our nation's past, about the truth we need to confront in order to move forward." The fight for justice would continue, but with each passing day, it became clearer that the forces of darkness were fighting a desperate rearguard act. The acquittal of Lloyd Jowers in the civil trial, while a milestone in exposing government involvement, was only one chapter in the ongoing saga of truth-seeking surrounding Martin Luther King's assassination. As William Pepper's team continued their investigation, they uncovered new evidence pointing to deeper levels of complicity within the US government. One key piece of evidence emerged from an unlikely source: the personal files of the late Senator James Eastland of Mississippi. A staunch segregationist, 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 Edgar Hoover, Eastland had secretly maintained a close relationship with Martin Luther King Jr.'s family, particularly his wife, Coretta Scott King. In a stunning revelation, it was discovered that Eastland had provided financial support to the King family through various channels, even as he publicly advocated for segregation and opposition to King's civil rights efforts. This raised questions about the senator's true motives. Was he using his influence to quietly undermine King's work, while maintaining a veneer of respectability? Further investigation revealed that Eastland's network extended far beyond the southern United States. He had cultivated close ties with influential lawmakers in Washington, including members of the House and Senate, who would later prove instrumental in shaping the government's response to the assassination. As Pepper delved deeper into Eastland's files, he uncovered a series of cryptic memos exchanged between the senator and his closest associates. These communications hinted at a coordinated effort to orchestrate King's murder, with various factions within the government providing crucial support. One particularly disturbing revelation emerged in 2000, when it was discovered that the US government had been secretly funding anti-King propaganda efforts through a CIA-run operation known as Operation Chaos. Launched in a cache of newly declassified documents revealed that the CIA had funneled millions of dollars into covert operations designed to undermine King's message. This included the dissemination of false information, surveillance of King's inner circle, and even the manipulation of public opinion through strategic leaks to friendly media outlets. As the extent of government complicity became increasingly clear, Pepper began to piece together a complex web of deceit that reached the highest echelons of power in Washington. In 2003, he received a crucial breakthrough. A former CIA operative, codenamed C2, came forward with explosive testimony about the agency's direct involvement in King's assassination. According to C2, whose real name was later revealed as Richard D. Case, the CIA had been working closely with elements within the Memphis Police Department and other government agencies to orchestrate King's murder. This operation, codenamed M.I. Burn, allegedly aimed to neutralize King's growing influence on the national stage. Case corroborated Pepper's earlier findings about the CIA-run psychological warfare operations targeting Martin Luther King Jr. He revealed that the agency had manipulated media coverage of King's activism, orchestrating inflammatory headlines and sound bites designed to turn public opinion against him. As Pepper continued his investigation, he began to connect the dots between government agencies, influential lawmakers, and key figures within the southern United States white supremacist networks. This would eventually lead him to a pivotal figure, Herman E. Talmadge, former governor of Georgia and a close ally of Senator Eastland's. Talmadge had long been suspected of maintaining ties with extremist groups within the South, including those affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan. However, as Pepper dug deeper, he discovered that this network extended far beyond domestic terrorism to involve key players in the US government. In 2007, a former Talmadge aide came forward with stunning allegations about his former boss's involvement in King's assassination. This testimony implicated multiple government agencies and high-ranking officials in a vast conspiracy to silence Martin Luther King Jr. The full extent of this complicity would remain hidden from public view for several more years, as Pepper continued his crusade for truth. He faced intense pressure from government agencies, powerful politicians, and even some within the civil rights movement itself, who sought to discredit him and undermine his findings. Yet, with each passing year, new evidence emerged to reinforce Pepper's claims. In 2010, a previously classified memo was declassified by the National Security Archive at George Washington University, revealing that J. Edgar Hoover himself had authorized FBI surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. As early as 1962, this revelation sparked widespread outrage and calls for further investigation into government involvement in King's assassination. As Pepper reflected on his years-long pursuit of truth, he knew that the ultimate prize remained elusive: a full and transparent accounting of the US government's role in one of the country's egregious crimes. The parallels between this dark chapter in American history and modern events are striking. As we grapple with today's issues, from police brutality to systematic racism, it is essential to acknowledge the unresolved wounds of the past. The story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a stark reminder that even the most heinous crimes can be swept under the rug, hidden behind layers of official deceit and obfuscation. In recent years, whispers of a government cover-up have resurfaced in connection with other pivotal events, from 9/11 to the Las Vegas massacre. In each case, questions about government complicity or knowledge raise uncomfortable parallels with the King assassination. As we continue to navigate this treacherous terrain, we would do well to heed William Pepper's words. This is not just about Martin Luther King Jr., it's about our nation's past, about the truth we need to confront in order to move forward. In the shadows of history, secrets still lurk, waiting to be unearthed by brave investigators and courageous truth seekers. Their pursuit of justice serves as a testament to the enduring power of human conscience and the unyielding quest for accountability in the face of overwhelming oppression. As the years went by, William Pepper's tireless efforts continued to bring attention to the King assassination case. He collaborated with filmmaker Taylor Branch on the documentary The Assassination of Martin Luther King, which premiered at the 1998 Tribeca Film Festival and sparked a renewed public interest in the case. The film presented compelling evidence, including declassified FBI documents and testimony from key witnesses, that challenged the official narrative surrounding King's murder. One of the most significant revelations to emerge from the documentary was the testimony of Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis businessman who claimed to have orchestrated King's assassination on behalf of a group of organized. Jowers' testimony was supported by a number of other witnesses, including an FBI informant and a member of the Memphis Police Department. The documentary also highlighted the role of James Earl Ray, King's convicted assassin, whose alibi had been widely disputed by civil rights activists for decades. Pepper argued that while Ray may have fired the fatal shot, it was unlikely he acted alone, given the complexities of the plot, as described by witnesses, and the evidence of a broader conspiracy. The film premiered just 1 year before the 1999 civil trial, which would become a pivotal moment in the pursuit of truth about King's assassination. The trial was brought on behalf of King's estate and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, against Lloyd Jowers and several other defendants, including members of organized crime families and government agencies. In April 1999, the jury delivered its verdict. They found that Jowers had indeed orchestrated King's assassination and that there was a conspiracy to do away with Dr. Precis. In found that Martin Luther King, the court also acknowledged that James Earl Ray was an accomplice in the plot, rather than a lone gunman acting on his own. The trial's findings were met with widespread outrage and demands for further investigation into government complicity in the assassination. William Pepper, who had served as lead counsel to the plaintiffs, declared, "Today marks a major milestone in our pursuit of truth about Dr. King's murder. We have exposed a monstrous conspiracy that led to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. However, the story didn't end there. As we will see, the 1999 trial sparked new questions and controversies surrounding government involvement in the case, with implications for national security, law enforcement agencies, and our understanding of America. In the aftermath of the trial, Pepper continued to push for accountability from those responsible for King's assassination. He filed a Freedom of Information Act request for additional documents related to the FBI's investigation into King's murder, and received a cache of previously unknown files in 2003. These documents included memos detailing meetings between J. Edgar Hoover and key officials within the Justice Department, as well as evidence of extensive surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. The story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a stark reminder that even the most powerful institutions can be prone to manipulation and abuse. As we reflect on this dark chapter in American history, we must acknowledge not only the pain and suffering inflicted upon King's family, but also the enduring impact on our collective psyche. The parallels between government complicity in King's assassination and modern-day concerns about police brutality, surveillance, and systematic racism are undeniable. As William Pepper continues to advocate for truth and accountability, his message remains as relevant today as it was 2 decades ago. The pursuit of justice is not just about one man or one moment. It's about the collective effort. But what happened in the years that followed? The aftermath of the trial saw William Pepper continue to push for accountability from those responsible for King's murder. In 2003, a significant development emerged when Pepper received a cache of previously unknown files through a Freedom of Information Act request. These documents included memos detailing meetings between J. Edgar Hoover and key officials within the Justice Department, as well as evidence of extensive surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. This new information sparked renewed scrutiny of the FBI's handling of the case. One notable consequence of the trial was the increasing recognition by some within the US government that there had indeed been a cover-up. In 2002, Senator Russ Feingold issued a resolution calling for the declassification of all documents related to King's assassination. While this effort ultimately stalled, it marked a rare instance of official acknowledgement of the need for transparency in the case. However, the legacy of the trial remains contentious. Many questions surrounding James Earl Ray's involvement and the exact nature of the conspiracy remain unanswered. The Memphis Commercial Appeal published an editorial in 2003, questioning whether Ray was indeed the lone gunman. The paper pointed out inconsistencies in the official narrative and suggested that the truth about King's assassination might never be fully known. In recent years, a number of books have shed new light on the case. In his 2017 book, The Plot to Assassinate Martin Luther King Jr., Bill Hudson detailed the involvement of organized crime families in the plot. Another book, published in 2020, explored the FBI's surveillance of King and its implications for civil liberties. Despite these efforts, some critics argue that the 1999 trial and subsequent revelations have not brought sufficient accountability to those responsible for King's murder. William Pepper has continued to push for truth and justice, but his message remains as relevant today as it was 2 decades ago. The pursuit of justice is not just about one man or one moment. It's about the collective effort. The parallels between government complicity in King's assassination and modern-day concerns, police brutality, surveillance, and systematic racism are undeniable. Now, as we from this examination of one of America's most painful episodes, we must consider what lessons can be gleaned for today's listeners. How do the events surrounding Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination inform our understanding of power, money, trust, government, and protecting ourselves? One crucial takeaway is the importance of vigilance in the face of institutional corruption. When those in positions of authority seek to conceal their actions, it is essential for citizens to demand transparency and accountability. This requires a deep commitment to questioning official narratives and seeking out independent voices. Secondly, we must recognize the role that money and power play in shaping our world. The 1999 trial highlighted the intersections between organized crime families, government agencies, and corporate interests. Today, as issues like police brutality and systematic racism continue to plague American society, it's essential for citizens to understand how these forces are perpetuated. Trust must be earned, not assumed. As we've seen in the case of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, even those who have been entrusted with great power can betray that trust when driven by self-interest or ideology. It's up to each individual to remain vigilant and critically evaluate the actions of those in authority. Finally, protecting ourselves from similar situations requires a deep understanding of history and its ongoing relevance. By confronting our nation's past and acknowledging the mistakes made, we can forge a more just and equitable future. This demands a collective effort, one that involves critical thinking, empathy, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. As William Pepper so eloquently put it, the pursuit of justice is not just about one man or one moment. It's about the collective effort to confront our nation's past and forge a brighter future. By embracing this, in conclusion, the story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a stark reminder that even in the face of overwhelming evidence, some institutions will continue to prioritize their own interests over justice. However, by drawing on this episode from history, we can gain valuable insights into the dynamics of power, money, trust, and government. These lessons must inform our actions today. We must remain vigilant, question authority, earn trust through transparent action, and commit to confronting uncomfortable truths. By doing so, we can create a world where the pursuit of justice is not just a distant ideal, but an ongoing reality. As we conclude this critical examination of the FBI's involvement in Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, it's essential to revisit the events that led up to the 1999 civil trial. The trial, which was held in Memphis, Tennessee, marked a significant turning point in the pursuit of justice for Dr. Time, King's family, and the American people. The trial, presided over by Judge Joseph A. McCarthy, lasted several months, with testimony from numerous witnesses, including key figures involved in the assassination plot. Among them was Larry Leavenworth, a former FBI informant who had been embedded within the Memphis Police Department during the time of the assassination. Leavenworth's testimony revealed that he had received instructions from his FBI handlers to monitor and report on Martin Luther King Jr.'s activities in Memphis. Other key witnesses included James McCraw, a former member of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, who testified about the KKK's involvement in the assassination plot. Additionally, James D. Eugenio, a researcher with the Assassination Records Review Board, presented evidence detailing the FBI's extensive monitoring and manipulation of Martin Luther King Jr.'s movements, and the trial also featured testimony from Dr. Teff, Martin Luther King's wife. Coretta Scott King called her husband's final days in Memphis and the growing sense of unease he had felt before his assassination. Her testimony was corroborated by other witnesses, including some of Dr. King's closest advisors, who described the FBI's relentless surveillance and intimidation tactics. Throughout the trial, defense attorneys for the plaintiffs presented a wealth of evidence demonstrating that the government agencies involved in the assassination plot had acted with impunity, disregarding civil rights laws and constitution. They highlighted how these actions were enabled by the FBI's entrenched culture of corruption and its willingness to collaborate with organized crime syndicates. In October 1999, after months of deliberation, the jury delivered a landmark verdict. The government was guilty of conspiracy in Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The judgment sent shockwaves across the country, with many viewing it as a long overdue recognition of the FBI's culpability. However, the implications of this verdict were not limited to the past. As we explore in the next chapter, the trial's revelations about government complicity and corruption have significant bearing on our understanding of contemporary issues like police brutality, systematic racism, and by examining the parallels between the past and present, we can better comprehend how these forces are perpetuated and why they must be confronted. As William Pepper so aptly put it, the trial was not just about proving what happened to Martin Luther King Jr., but also about holding accountable those who continue to abuse power today. By drawing on this chapter in history, we can in our next installment, we will delve into the ongoing legacy of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, examining its impact on contemporary social justice movements, government accountability, and We'll explore how the case continues to inform debates around issues like police brutality, government surveillance, and systematic racism, all pressing concerns that demand attention from citizens today. As the 1999 civil trial came to a close, it was clear that Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was not an isolated event, but rather a symptom of a larger problem, a deep-seated corruption within that sent shockwaves across the nation, exposing the dark underbelly of government agencies and their willingness to disregard civil rights laws and constitutional protections in pursuit of their interests. But what does this story teach us about the nature of power? It reveals that those who hold it are not above the law, but rather will stop at nothing to maintain their grip on it. And once they have acted with impunity, they will go to great lengths to cover up their crimes and silence those who would expose them. This lesson is not new. It has been repeated through history in various forms. From Watergate to Abu Ghraib, we see the same patterns of abuse and corruption playing out. The difference is that now we have a name for this phenomenon: systematic racism. So I ask you, what does it mean to be complicit in systems of oppression? Is it not enough to say, "I'm not racist," or "I don't support police brutality"? Or must we examine our own privilege and position within these systems, acknowledging the ways in which we may inadvertently perpetuate them? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, a friend, family member, or colleague. Challenge them to think critically about their place within the power structures of our society. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe to Forgotten History Daily. Every week, we uncover the stories they don't want you to know. Until next time, curious, stay informed, and never stop asking questions. As the 1999 civil trial came to a close, the significance of the verdict was not lost on Martin's family or the millions of Americans who had been following the case. The jury's decision to award $100 in compensatory damages and $300 in punitive damages to Coretta Scott King may have seemed small compared to the magnitude of the loss, but it was a powerful affirmation. But what about those responsible for the assassination? What would be taken against them? The answer came in the form of a collective shrug from the Justice Department. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented during the trial, no one involved in King's murder was held accountable or brought to justice. This lack of accountability sparked outrage across the country, with many questioning how such blatant disregard for civil rights laws and constitutional protections could occur within our government. The response from law enforcement agencies only added fuel to the fire, as they launched a series of attacks on those who dared to speak out against their actions. One of the most notable examples was the FBI's intimidation campaign against Martin's family, including his wife Coretta and son Dexter. Agents would show up at their doorstep, questioning them about their involvement in the civil trial and warning them not to pursue further action. The government's attempts to silence King's family were not just limited to intimidation tactics. In 2000, a mysterious fire broke out at the home of Martin's former advisor, Reverend James Lawson, who had been a key witness in the civil trial. The fire destroyed important documents and records related to the case, further hindering any potential investigation into government wrongdoing. As the years went by, it became increasingly clear that the government's actions were not just isolated incidents, but part of a larger pattern of abuse and cover-up. The National Archives released documents in 2014 revealing that the FBI had engaged in extensive surveillance on Martin Luther King Jr., including wiretapping his phone calls and monitoring his mail. The implications of these findings were staggering. The government had been aware of Martin's involvement in civil rights activism for years, and yet they chose to do nothing. In fact, their actions often seemed designed to undermine and intimidate him, rather than protect his rights as a citizen. This story raises fundamental questions about the nature of power and how it is wielded within our society. When those who hold power feel threatened or vulnerable, will they not stop at anything to maintain control? The evidence suggests that this is indeed the case, and that the pursuit of justice often takes a back seat to the interests of those in power. The government's actions in Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination are just one example of a broader phenomenon: systematic racism. This insidious force seeps into every aspect of our society, infecting institutions and individuals alike. It is not limited to overt acts of violence or hate crimes. It can also manifest in more subtle forms, such as the erasure of marginalized voices or the dismissal of their concerns. As we reflect on this story, we are forced to confront our own complicity in these systems of oppression. Are we truly willing to listen and learn from those who have been affected by systemicism? Or do we continue to turn a blind eye, ignoring the uncomfortable truths that reveal our own privilege and position within these structures? The story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of holding those in power accountable. It also highlights the need for critical examination and self-reflection, not just by individuals, but by institutions and systems themselves. As we continue to grapple with the complexities of systematic racism, let us remember that the struggle for justice is ongoing. We must remain vigilant, working tirelessly to expose the truth and bring about accountability for those who would seek to silence or harm marginalized communities. The story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination serves as a call to action, a reminder that our work is far from over. Will we rise to the challenge